Hello everybody and welcome back to Forever Rugby on Forever Sports, and some very interesting news in the British and Irish Lions tour, which continues to just go from one direction to the other, to be honest. It's been a very, very strange last sort of 12 months with just so much uncertainty over the tour, which was scheduled to start at the end of June. And obviously, you know, I mean, they even with the COVID-19 pandemic hitting last year, the ticket sales went through normally. And up until sort of October, November, probably sort of even December to a certain degree, when South Africa sort of experienced a second wave, it had been widely accepted that the tour would still go ahead in South Africa. The ticket sales went through normally. In September, the whole sort of auction stuff like that, everybody paid a lot of money. There were, you know, packages being sold to the UK supporters and worldwide supporters, and it was all sort of generally accepted that it would be in South Africa. Obviously, then sort of November, December, January, as you know, the pandemic didn't seem to be sort of going anywhere. We had a second wave in South Africa. Suddenly, there were a lot more sort of doubts being created about where the tour would take place, and whether it would be a case of still taking place in South Africa behind closed doors. There was a whole report about taking place in Australia, which I think was nonsense, and then a tour being taken place in the UK, given the fact that the COVID-19 pandemic vaccine, well, the vaccines are being sort of widely distributed in the UK. I think, you know, the other day they vaccinated just less than a million people in one day. So, for example, in the Premier League, they look like they're going to be welcoming fans back, you know, in May. And so there's a very big sort of support being garnered about moving the tour to the UK, which wouldn't really be a tour. It'll just be a series within the UK, potentially adding an extra test as well. And because it could happen in front of fans. And that was the whole thing. That's why Australia offered to host the series, because they said we could have it we can have it with fans, because I think if it's behind closed doors, it'll take place in South Africa. You know, if it were to be a choice of behind closed doors in the UK or South Africa, they would choose to go to South Africa. There is home ground advantage, there's altitude, there's conditions. It's very different playing rugby. Playing rugby in June, July in South Africa is going to be completely different to playing rugby in June, July in the UK. You know, for example. And the last sort of 2 weeks, it was kind of started to be accepted that it was going to be going to the UK and that the tour would be rescheduled. And there was actually, in fact, a draft schedule, which was actually confirmed apparently by various sources, that it was going to include matches against Japan. There was going to be USA involved with the Springboks. There was going to be potentially French Barbarians being involved. And it was going to be like a whole different series, you know, with different teams playing. Still a South African invitational team and stuff like that. And there was a whole sort of schedule released, which had games, you know, everywhere. What seemed strange to me in that schedule was the fact that there were 4 tests, but you know, 2 of them were taking place in England. Where for me it kind of makes sense. If you're gonna have 4 tests, do Aviva Stadium, Millennium Stadium, Murrayfield, and Twickenham, and do a whole sort of literally British and Irish Lions tour moving around. However, a big sort of move back in the original direction is that SA Rugby apparently are desperate to salvage the Lions tour in South Africa, and they are making a plea to the government to allow 50% spectators in July and August, and for the tour to go ahead as it was supposed to be, which would be massive. And Mark Alexander came out yesterday and said that they are trying everything they can to try and do it, because it would be a huge boost to the economy. Obviously, if it takes place in South Africa, SA Rugby make a lot more money. They obviously still will make money if it takes place in the UK, but you know, when you think about the unions, for example, I think a big thing for SA Rugby will be for the money for the unions. If the British and Irish Lions are playing against the Bulls, the Sharks, the Stormers, you know, they are getting the revenue from that. And given the fact that South Africa's economy is so desperate for something like this to happen, they have made, from the looks of it, one final plea to say, can we not have it with 50% spectators? And if you look at the cases in South Africa, whilst the vaccinations are becoming really slow, I mean, less than 200,000 people have been vaccinated in the country, the cases are dropping and just not rising. I mean, South Africa currently back to level 1, and you know, sporting events are starting to take place everywhere. Schools are starting to play sport again. Clubs are starting to go back to action. We've obviously been having rugby being taking place in the country since September last year, and it's and I mean, during the kickoff series, for example, in the rugby, I don't think we've had any COVID cases. I mean, they've been like every week we're getting told, you know, like the Lions had like 550 tests done across all their staff members and no positive cases. So it looks like in South Africa, you know, we're on the downward spiral in terms of the current COVID-19 pandemic climate. Whether there's going to be a third wave is still sort of obviously very speculative. There could be a third wave, and if that is the case, it could be in July. But the problem is we just don't know what's going to happen. But this is what Alexander said. He said, the Lions tour will help our economy get back on track and also help the tourism industry overcome the negative effects brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as stop the loss of staff through retrenchments. All sectors of our society must help the economy get back on track. So, yeah, I mean, it's for me, it looks like, and we kind of looked almost at one stage, looked like SA Rugby had accepted that it was going to be in the UK. Rusty Russ was coming out saying, we just want to play. And if we have to play here, we have to play in the UK, we just want to play. But now it suddenly looks like SA Rugby are going to fight and say, if there is the smallest opportunity, we can have the tour in South Africa with fans, we have to try and go for it. And I think it's the right thing to do. They really do need to try and do everything in their power to ensure this tour happens. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased. I've got tickets and I just want to go and I want to watch it. But, it's more than that. We've waited 11 years for this tour. It's not going to be postponed in 2022. We've seen how that's just not going to happen because there's too much of an issue with scheduling. So if this does not happen in South Africa, you have to wait another 11 years. And that would then mean 22 years, probably at least 22 years between tours, which is a long time. I mean, that can mean that people who missed out in 2009 would have to wait 22 years potentially before they were able to watch the Lions play against the Springboks in South Africa. So there are huge repercussions about a tour which doesn't happen very often. So I mean, it's a 12-year turnaround time. And there will be there'll be other tours and stuff like that, but you can understand why they are so desperate to have this tournament taking place in South Africa. It would do wonders. When you think about if there's 50% of fans, you still have traveling fans. Even regardless of if you have traveling fans, you are still going to have South Africans. You still only have to refund half the amount of ticket holders. You still get half the ticket revenue, which is already in the bank accounts. They've already sold all the tickets basically. There's still going to be all the South African fans going and buying food, buying beer, buying the merchandise, traveling to Cape Town, going to pubs, going to bars, all that. It's even if it's no international supporters, there's still a lot of money being generated. Obviously, we need that external investment. You want the traveling supporters, and if there's 50% and they still have tickets, they can still come and travel. So it's very interesting to see what happens. I mean, the decision was scheduled to be at the end of the month, and to be honest, all sort of signs pointed towards it being in the UK, and that kind of seemed to be widely accepted. But now, SA Rugby doing a final ditch. Apparently, the SA Tourism Minister has come out and is backing it and says that they need to have it in South Africa, even if it's behind closed doors. Because it still generates a bit of revenue. SuperSport become the broadcaster, and South African sponsors can get involved and stuff like that. So the Lions have to stay somewhere. They have to stay in a hotel. There's still some revenue being put into the economy if it is here, but it will not happen here behind closed doors if it can happen in the UK with fans. I think that's the stark reality. It looks. I mean, Minister Nathi Mthethwa has basically said that it's too early to talk about fans yet, but there have been a lot of talks between SASCA, Cricket South Africa. A lot of different sport unions are saying, can we not move towards having fans back in the stadium? Can we not do, temperature checks, 50% capacity, so there's always, distance between yourselves and stuff like that? Can we start moving towards having fans back in the stadiums? Because we need the money for it. So it's very interesting to see what's going to happen. Obviously, we'll keep you updated if anything changes. But at the moment, it looks like no final decision has been made. That's the main thing. No decision has yet been made about this tour. And so we can continue to sort of soldier on, not knowing what's happening. But hopefully, by next week or by April, there will be a decision made and they can then forge ahead for whatever the decision is. Regardless of what's happening, we'll be covering the series. We'll be keeping you up to date. If it's down here, we'll be going to the games, doing some fan cams, trying to find out, chatting to everybody. If it's overseas, we'll probably have to do something a bit more remote, see if we can try and find a couple of people on the ground in the UK who can go and get a little bit sort of more in-depth coverage. Thank you very much for watching. Please do subscribe to the channel, smash a like on the video as well. We'll be back this week with various content, so make sure you are keeping it locked on Forever Rugby on Forever Sports. My name is Stephen. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll chat to you soon.